On the economic challenges the country is now facing, former Finance Minister of Ukrainian Natalie Jaresko is with me. So if we look at the significance of EU membership, what do you say it gives? Because there are reasons, of course, why the EU has not welcomed Ukraine before.
Well, thank you, Richard. I think EU membership has multiple really important value points and principles for Ukraine. Number one, it means being a part of that EU market. It means access to those markets. It means being integrated with those markets. It means having its rules and regulations integrated. But secondarily, right now, it has enormous psychological meaning. Ukrainians are fighting for the values of the free world, of democracy, and frankly speaking, they need to be shown that the world recognizes their incredible commitment, their incredible courage, and their conviction to, frankly speaking, die for those principles and values that the European Union represents.
Since Ukraine is, the EU is going to have to make a decision probably quite quickly on whether to fast track Ukraine into the Union. But of course there were reasons, weren't there, why in the past the EU has dragged its heels. Do you fear those reasons will be brought back?
Of course, there's always going to be some countries in the European Union that are, as you say, dragging their heels for a variety of reasons. Some, in the case of Hungary, for example, doing it perhaps in collaboration with Moscow. Others fearful of the Ukrainian agricultural market and its strength. But today, I think all of those things need to be put aside. The Ukrainian market is unfortunately, as you just mentioned, been terribly beaten by this war already, with a 45% GDP decline prediction. And so I don't think there's anything to fear. I think there's only something to gain by having the Ukrainian market be integrated with the European Union at this point.
On this reconstruction, I mean, the IMF has already made clear it will, and as indeed the World Bank, and there's the EBRD. There's an entire plethora of international lending organizations that will be involved in that. But of course, it all is predicated on Ukraine remaining a sovereign country.
There's no question. And right now, the key issue for us is ending the war. And what can happen from an economic standpoint, what needs to happen, is we need to make sure that we're putting as many of the sanctions as we humanly can on the Russian economy to isolate it. We're not doing enough on banking sanctions. We're not doing enough, as you know, to stop the EU from financing this war with its purchases of oil and gas. And frankly speaking, I've been doing a lot on self-sanctioning, boycotting. Businesses in Russia need to stop financing this war.
Right. But Natalie, on this question of oil, the Germans and the Austrians say it's simply not possible. We've covered it on this program many times. Are you saying, regardless, even though that would worsen the German economic situation and arguably thereby as the largest economy, push Europe further towards recession?
So on oil, I think it's absolutely doable and doable in a very quick way, because I think with oil, both the United States is doing what it can to increase production, and there are other sources of production as well that could be increased. Gas, I understand, is harder, but the commitment has to be made sooner. And frankly speaking, I think this war, with every day that it continues, is going to continue to put pressure on the European economy anyway. And the pressures are growing exponentially. Both the refugee crisis that we see from Ukraine today is affecting the European market. But what about the refugee crisis we're going to see in the Northern Africa and Middle East, when 400 million people who usually are fed by Ukrainian agriculture aren't fed? What about the cost of the steel that's not going to be exported, the neon for the semiconductor industry that won't be exported? There's so much damage that's going to be done to the global economy, to Europe's economy. There's more value in stopping this now than in waiting.